Shalom, this is Daniel John Lee with Torah Restoration Ministries, and this is part 3 of a 3-part series that I've done over the last couple of nights. This is the final part, and in this part we're going to explore something that I touched on in an article that I wrote at the beginning of Hebrew New Year. This article was called Prophetic Implications for 2013 and 2017, and I'm not going to read the whole article here. You can go read it yourself, but there is a theme that I want to begin this video with, and that theme is touched upon in this article called the third year of tribulation. It says, however, from Aviv 2013 to Aviv 2014, the first trumpet should completely and totally manifest on earth. As the third day of creation week saw the blossoming of vegetation and greenery across the earth, the third year of tribulation will see the destruction by fire of a third of the trees and all green grass across the earth. I'm becoming more and more convinced the first trumpet is describing nuclear war, as it mentions hail and blood mingled with fire. When an atomic cloud rolls up on itself, it immediately spits out pulverized white chunks of whatever material was blown up in the blast, both biological blood and non-biological. This global nuclear war will finally cause the first, third, and fifth seals to fully manifest, and without doubt, the fourth seal and third trumpet will no longer be foreshadows but stark realities. What is amazing is that even though the seals, trumpets, and bowls are tied up to the 7 days of creation, thus causing them not to burst forth in chronological order, we see that in fact the first trumpet really is the first event that fully manifests on earth, setting everything else in motion. This makes geopolitical and prophetic sense as well. After all, if the Anti-Messiah truly is going to emerge in early 2014, and if the two witnesses are going to begin their ministry on Lamb Day of 2014, something very dramatic must happen in order to pave the way for those events. The first trumpet will cause a global shake-up by fire that will provide the perfect impetus for the needed prophetic events. So, I want to talk about that. I'm saying in this article that because Aviv 2013, the spring of 2013, to Aviv 2014, the spring of 2014, is the third year of the final 7 years, the third year of tribulation, that just like in the third day of creation, where the trees and the grass were created, so the third trumpet will blast forth sometime this year, between Aviv 2013 and Aviv 2014. And that this first trumpet global nuclear war will be a shakeup that will allow the necessary prophetic things to come forth in early 2014, such as the Great Delusion that I talk about in the first 2 videos of this series. So what if this shakeup, this first trumpet global nuclear war, is caused by what's going on in Syria? Okay, so I want to go and explore that right now. There's some websites that I want to take a look at, and these are headlines from Debka File. They were from yesterday and today. Yesterday, from June 18th, is EU and NATO have delivered shipments of weapons to Syrian rebels in South Syria and the Aleppo region. And then today, on June 19th, Russian Marines and air power heading for Syria by ships due to Western intervention. Okay, so a lot of people have been saying that Syria is basically quickly becoming what's known as a proxy war, where Russia and China and Iran are backing Assad's regime in Syria, and Europe and the United States and NATO are backing the Islamists and rebels that are fighting against Assad's regime. So they see this proxy war beginning to develop. What's interesting is that at the beginning of this year, the beginning of this Hebrew year, which was April of 2013, we saw some rising tensions going on in North Korea, between North Korea and South Korea. Now things have sort of seemingly quieted down. But just today, we have this story here, and if this internet will load here we go. North Korea damaged Syrian missiles. So here we have an article about North Korea helping Assad's regime. Says a delegation of North Korean technicians arrived in Syria to help rebuild the country's missile capabilities, including those damaged in previous Israeli bombardments, according to the informed Middle Eastern security officials speaking to WND. The goal is for Syria to maintain enough missiles to fire hundreds or even thousands of missiles at the same time into Israel's to overwhelm the Jewish state's missile defense batteries in any future attack, the official said. Okay, I'm not going to go into the whole article, but basically we see that North Korea and the tensions that were going on earlier in the year between North and South Korea, it's not that those things are no longer in existence. They're all playing into what's building toward what I think is going to be a global nuclear world war. World War III, if you will. So you see North Korea as well aligning with Assad's regime. Now, this idea of a proxy war, let's explore that and how that relates to a world war. This is from Israel Today. This was published yesterday on June 18th. It says, Syrian civil war dress rehearsal for world war. A leading Israeli expert on the Middle East suggested last week that with all the foreign involvement in the ongoing Syrian civil war, that conflict could be the harbinger of a much wider conflagration. Professor Itamar Rabinovich, a former Israeli ambassador to Egypt, told those attending a symposium at Tel Aviv University that in the eyes of the Arab world, the final outcome of the Arab Spring hinges on the results of the struggle in Syria. According to Professor Rabinovich, the Syrian conflict is a Middle Eastern version of the Spanish Civil War, which was itself a dress rehearsal for World War II. In Syria, the opposition is supported by the U.S. and Europe, while the regime is backed by Hezbollah, Iran, and China. For Russia, the stakes are high also. Moscow sees Syria as a key to restoring Russia's status in the region, so replacing the Assad regime with one supportive of America is unacceptable to Russian President Vladimir Putin. And we can also throw in North Korea, because of that article I just showed you, that they're also in the mix here supporting Assad's regime. So what does this professor mean, that the Syrian conflict is a Middle Eastern version of the Spanish Civil War? Well, the Spanish Civil War occurred from 1936 until 1939, so basically years immediately preceding World War II, leading up to World War II. The Spanish Civil War was a major conflict in Spain that started after an attempted coup d'etat committed by parts of the army, the government of the Second Spanish Republic. The Civil War devastated Spain from July 17, 1936 to April 1st of 1939, ending with the victory of the rebels and the founding of a dictatorship led by the fascist general Francisco Franco and the defeat of the supporters of the Republic. The Republicanos gained the support of the Soviet Union and Mexico, while the followers of the rebellion, nationalists, received the support of Italy, Germany, as well as neighboring Portugal. The war increased tensions in the lead-up to World War II and was largely seen as a possible war by proxy between the communist Soviet Union and the fascist axis of fascist Italy and Nazi Germany. So fascist Italy and Nazi Germany supported the nationalists, whereas the communistic Soviet Union was supporting the Republicanos. The nationalists eventually won, emboldening the fascists, Germany and Italy, to then wage World War II. So this proxy war that was waged in Spain directly led to World War II. And in the same way, this proxy war that's going on in Syria that's building up is going to lead to World War III, I think. It seems like history is completely and totally repeating itself. This is a story that came out today, June 19th. Russian Marine and air power head for Syria versus Western intervention to defend Russian citizens, says Moscow. Just one day after the G8 summit ended in the failure of Western leaders to overcome Russian resistance to a resolution mandating President Bashar Assad's ouster, Moscow announced Wednesday, June 19th, the dispatch of Syria of 2 warships carrying 600 Russian Marines. They were coming, said the official statement, to protect the Russian citizens there. Russian Deputy Air Force Commander Major General Gradusov added that an Air Force umbrella would be provided the Russian Expeditionary Force if needed. Debka Files military sources report that the pretext offered by Moscow for sending the force thinly disguised Russian President Vladimir Putin's intent to flex Russian military muscle in response to the delivery of Western heavy arms to Syrian rebels, which Debka Files first revealed yesterday, Tuesday, June 18th. So we're seeing this buildup by proxy in Syria, and we're seeing how this is a complete reflection of what happened in the Spanish Civil War leading up to World War II. Now, there's something interesting about this timing. Again, we're going back to what I said about the first trumpet happening this year. Now, this next part is speculation on my part. I do not know if this is true or not, but I wanted to share this because I think it's very, very interesting. We just celebrated Shavuot. For those following the correct calendar, Shavuot occurred on June 16th. We're on June 19th. It occurred on June 16th. And what's interesting about Shavuot, of course this happens every year, is Shavuot always happens on the first day of a week, on a Sunday. And so you always have a Shabbat, seventh-day Sabbath, that precedes it. You've got seventh-day Sabbath on June 15th this year, and then Shavuot. But what is interesting is that there is a mirror to this pattern of Shavuot this year that doesn't occur too often. What do I mean by that? If you go to the next major feast, which is Yom Teruah on October 6th, now Yom Teruah always happens on the 7th new moon, and that can happen, you know, on various days of the week depending on the year. But this year, Yom Teruah happens also on a Sunday, on our first day of the week. And it happens right after, of course, the seventh-day Shabbat on the Sabbath. So what we have is a mirror image, sort of two bookmarks. We have a Sabbath on June 15th and then Shavuot on June 16th. And then 16 weeks later, the next feast day, we have a Sabbath, and then we have Yom Teruah, Feast of Trumpets. We have a mirror image, a bookmark, and between those two bookmarks we have 16 weeks through June, July, August, and September. Now what's interesting about the number 16 is if you open up your Bible and you count the prophets in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, you have Isaiah 1, Jeremiah 2, Ezekiel 3, Daniel 4, Hosea 5, Joel 6, Amos 7, Obadiah 8, Jonah 9, Micah 10, Nahum 11, Habakkuk 12, Zephaniah 13, Haggai 14, Zechariah 15, and Malachi 16. You have exactly 16 prophets in the Tanakh, signifying that something majorly prophetic is going to occur between these two mirror image bookmarks of the Sabbath on June 15th and Shavuot, and the Sabbath on October 5th and Yom Teruah on October 6th. It seems to me, and again this is just speculation on my part, but it seems to me that Yah is showing a very clear demarcation of time in which this global nuclear war, this world war, will erupt sometime over these next 16 weeks. Since we're looking for the first trumpet, which is going to basically result in a third of all trees and grass being burned up, a third of the trees and all green grass being burned up, since we're looking for that sign, it seems like it would happen on the Feast of Trumpets. I mean, after all, it's the Feast of Trumpets, so wouldn't the first trumpet blast on the Feast of Trumpets? Or maybe what we'll see is over the next 16 weeks, you know, things build up and then climax on October 6th. Again, that's speculation, but this is just something I wanted to point out. I think it's very, very interesting. In any case, we know that we're getting close. I do believe that this Syrian mess is going to directly lead to this global shakeup by fire, because it was on June 5th, 2011 that the Syrian conflict erupted in a major conflict between Syria and Israel, June 5th, 2011, and that's what started the 2300 days. I have another article about that on my website. So I believe what we're seeing here is what is basically happening on a geopolitical scale to lead to the events of the Great Delusion, of the two witnesses coming forth, of the Anti-Messiah coming forth, all in early 2014. So I just wanted to share this. This is the third part to this series. Yah bless, shalom. The website is www.spiritandtorah.com.